I got this amazing Zamioculcas zamiifolia, which is a ZZ plant, from my friend Tara, who had actually moved out. She was my neighbor. And this has been growing for her for 15 years. And it's clearly struggling a little bit because it is basically growing outside its terracotta girdle right now. So I'm here with my friend Allan, who happens to be in town from Mozambique, and Allan is reluctantly going to be helping me replant my ZZ plant. But Allan, I've learned a lot from him. He works on a sustainable development operation in Mozambique, which I had been a part of. He's in town now because he needs a little break from it, because unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that he's been working on over the last 25 years got hit with Hurricane Ida. So we've been raising a little bit of money actually to rebuild some of that. So I'll send you that link at the end. This plant is actually native to where Allan is from and lives, but you've never seen it.
Not in the wild, no. It's supposed to be abundant in that part of the world, but we're facing massive deforestation. In spite of it coming from there, probably have more of them in pots in New York than we have in Mozambique. What's interesting with it, if you look at this, it's actually starting to bloom. And normally tropical plants battle to bloom when they're away from home, and they normally bloom when they're very stressed. Because they'll bloom a lot because they want to reproduce and make sure that the species survives. So obviously it's stressed as hell in this pot. I mean, there's really, this probably should have been done 5 years ago.
Yeah. So the idea now is that we have a larger pot here that I have. I got some new soil. But the question is, and this is what Allan and I were kind of discussing off camera, is like, what's the best strategy to unpot this? And I suggested a hammer to break it out of its pot, but Allan, what do you suggest?
I'd like to try and ease it out of the pot. I'm not particularly fond of wasting pots. So if we can ease it out of the pot, I think I prefer that. It's certainly ready to divide if we're able to untangle the mess that it's managed to get into. Well, I think what I'd like to do is just get as much of the soil out around the edges as we can.
I should be now recreating the moment where I had to change the tire of the car and you were looking over me. Now I'm looking over you and I'm saying, change the soil out of this poor plant.
What's going to work best is if we actually put it on its side.
Okay.
And then you ease the soil out as much as we can. And you can just feel it if it starts to loosen up a little bit. But you can start feeling the roots already.
Yeah.
That there really is
I think it's like really stuck to the terracotta. Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, there's no soil left there at all.
Soil.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at that. Look at all the roots, but the roots look healthy.
Yeah, they're just all tied up, that's all.
I mean, this is a really good look of the Zamioculcas zamiifolia roots because they are very, almost like tuberous-like, but they're very meaty. We could probably tease them out, but I don't think we can separate them without cutting into it, probably.
It's not going to develop that well if you leave the roots as tied up as this.
Right.
One of the things in nature when you plant these things is you don't plant them in round holes, but in square ones.
Interesting.
And the reason you plant them in square ones is to stop this from happening in the ground. Because if it's square, it'll swirl around a little bit and then it'll find a corner, it'll really dig in and become secure.
Well, what's your experience of actually cutting into the roots? Because sometimes I know when people are planting larger tree balls, they'll cut into the root because the roots more easily.
Well, if it's a very big tree, you don't really have much choice because you'll have roots spreading at least as far as the canopy of the tree. You are going to cut a few roots and you're going to lose a few. Yeah, that should loosen up the soil, which will then allow you to untangle it a little bit more.
So you think that this flowered maybe because it was a little stressed, or do you think it was flowering because it was getting good light, or?
I don't think it needs a massive amount of light. But I think the issue of its stress, if you look at the color of the leaves and the new growth, they're a bit pale.
Yeah.
So I think the big problem is it just wasn't enough soil to keep it going.
Yeah, well, it's good because we have a little bit of microbial content I'm going to put in the soil too to just give it a good start, because when you're transplanting a plant, sometimes you want to give it just a little extra boost.
But you also want to put some of the old soil with it.
Well, whatever old soil we have left.
Because that will have the microbes that this particular plant likes.
I feel like I'm taking knots out of someone's hair.
Well, if this was a person having their hair dealt with, they'd be screaming. Yeah, they'd be screaming with the rough treatment you're giving them. But you'll see the middle has got all the soil.
Yeah.
And I think what I'd like to do is get rid of the soil, and then it should just start to fall apart.
Yeah. I don't know if we could shake, like if we had a more sensitive plant, like with really thin foliage, we might not be able to do this, but Mr. ZZ seems to be pretty resilient.
Well,
and if he lives in your neck of the woods,
then he's got to be as tough as hell. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's roll it again a bit. Loosen it up as much as we can.
I think it's pretty good now. I mean, you're really just getting the base of the root, I feel, or the actual stem of the plant.
Well, now you can see the tubers.
Yep.
So it's now a matter of whether we can untangle them or whether we have to cut them. And this is more difficult than separating bananas.
It does, you can see that it's like it could be two very easily.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's definitely more than two plants here. There's a lot.
But this is a clear bifurcation.
I mean, you can see the structure of it is you have a bunch of leaves all coming to a center point, and each of those center points is actually an independent plant, or potentially an independent plant.
Yep, here it is. It's
You
coming
see how
out.
that all is coming out. There we go.
Oh, yay!
So it's completely.
Ta-da! You realize how big it is, even just seeing that one piece. It's still
I mean,
sizable.
really. So if you look where my thumb is, you can see here.
Yeah.
That's the place it's going to open up. So let's just turn it over.
Yep.
Start to feel
see?
through the roots.
This little one right here came undone. So there's almost
you
like
can see.
two. I know this doesn't feel really good now, ZZ, but it'll make you feel really good afterwards.
I think there's a little bit we might have to cut here. But let's see if we can tease these roots out.
This is like the Siamese twins right now.
You have to cut it there. Where did you put that knife?
I'll let you do the cake cutting.
There we go.
Yep, there you go. Ta-da!
I say almost each little bunch of leaves you can see, and in this case it's a bunch of leaves and a flower. That's an independent plant. They'll share a common root or tuber. So this one you can see is joined on there.
Yeah.
So you could separate it out if you wanted to, but you'd have to,
Here, like this.
There you go. And that will, if you put that in the pot, that'll probably take you 10 years and you'll get the same monster that we started with.
Next plant swap. So I'm just putting some of the soil in these bags, and I'm going to use the soil to mix back in again. And then the step 2 is deciding which plant goes into which, and we have 3 pots. All that are probably going to be too small for them, but these are what we have.
Yeah, any one of these is enough for one pot, because that's going to fill up and multiply really quickly.
Right. But we only have 3 pots, and we have 2 bigger ones.
Well, we're the neighbors who need plants.
Everyone's raising their hand right now on YouTube. All right, well, we decided that we would get 2 more pots for these guys because we have enough cuttings and divisions that we need enough pots. I definitely don't have enough soil, so I probably will have to go back down to the soil to get soil, but we could at least start repotting 1. So we have 2 more here, and we could put 1 in each. Like that. Went from 1 pot to 5.
And it could be more.
Yep.
So from 1 pot it could have been 8.
So this is a soil activator. So you usually use this if you have seeds or if you're transplanting plants, but this actually has microorganisms, so like bacillus, sometimes trichoderma, which is a type of fungus that helps with plant roots. I have some of that in here. This is biotone from Espoma, so I have that in a glass jar. Smells a little organic, that's okay. But oftentimes the potting soil is not inoculated with any kind of beneficial bacteria or anything like that, so it's always good to add a little extra help. So let me just put in a little bit of this too. It's like cinnamon, actually. It's like, let's see, I'm gonna put a little bit of this, and I'll put a little bit of this. So we have a...
Okay, what we're doing is mixing in potting soil with the activator and some of the old soil from the previous pot. That old soil will have a whole lot of microorganisms in it that, okay, I'll hold it up and you do the soil. And that will basically just allow the plant to be at home a lot quicker. So the microorganisms that it's used to are all there, and you, by putting some of them back, obviously the soil is very tired, most of its nutrients have already been used up, but the live things are still there. So you want to really maintain the old biodiversity that was in the pot. And that helps you do it. We can need another bag.
Okay, this is the second bag of soil.
Yep. That needs another about 2 inches of soil on top of that. And we need to squish it down some more. Yeah. Wants to get... Really what you want to do is compact it enough that the roots have got something to actually hold on to. Otherwise it's just very, very loose, and the first time you water it, it's just going to, soil level is going to just drop down and fill up and compact on its own anyway.
And remember, this hasn't lodged itself into the soil yet. Its roots are just kind of like nakedly growing in there, and until the root and root hairs start to grow out, it's not going to be able to grip on the soil. So you just want to give it some strength to stand.
Yeah, in about a week's time, after it'll settle down on its own much deeper, and you'll probably top up a bit more soil. Well, that should be good. We're going to give it a bit of water.
Yep, just moved into a new house.
You know, what it's probably really saying is, oh, thank goodness the kids moved out. Got a bit of space to breathe again. This massive multiplication. Yeah.
No, I don't have it.
Okay, I've got it on my side.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Right.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Whew. Okay. That's one. There's 4 more to go. So this is our final plant that we potted up today. Alan helped. How do you feel?
Yeah, tired, but you know, it's a nice feeling, because what's fun with this is that you've now got what, 5 pots?
5 pots.
And it's not going to take very long before they actually fill up exactly like that one. I mean, these are really wonderfully fecund things.
Yes, well, I am pleased that I had your help on this, and I think people have gotten a lot out of it. And before we go, I wanted to actually show you some of Alan's work. So Alan runs the Sustainable Development Organization Reforestation Project called Mezimbite Forest Centre, which I'll send you the link down below. And this is a beautiful coconut bowl. Yeah, do you want to tell you a little bit more about this?
Well, we have a coconut plantation, and it's a very old plantation, so it has a large number of moribund trees. We've got to get rid of a lot of the trees. Now, if you just cut a tree down, it'll rot, and the rotting part of the old tree will be the habitat for coconut predators like rhino beetles. So you need to get rid of it. Now, most people burn all of that, and what we've done is develop a use for all of the coconut timber. So some of it's structural timber, but what's really nice, which is an innovation of ours, is to use the roots as well. And this is from the root, and then it's made into a platter, and where there are some faults or potential cracks, then those are repaired and fixed in a way that's decorative.
And meticulously done, because you have to like cut out some of these.
Yes, you cut out and you inlay that, and it forms a joint. So that's a little double butterfly, or butterfly double dovetail joint. And then that will hold it and stop it from that crack that's there from splitting open any further. The idea is that you then incentivize cutting down the trees and getting rid of it in a way which is positive rather than, you know, burning it. And the wood is something which is very, very special. The other thing is that it provides a tremendous amount of work for people at a level which is not just labor. This is a serious skill.
And this is an heirloom piece that could be passed on over time. And you're using these little offcuts, which if you're working with, some of this wood for a larger piece, you get these little offcuts.
Yeah.
So you don't have to cut down anything for this.
The black ones actually, and the black dots on the other side are African Blackwood, Dalbergia melanoxylon, and those pieces are actually the offcuts from making components for clarinets and oboes. So those are things which you want to use as much of it as possible. It's one of the most expensive timbers in the world. The other one is this one, which is Songololo, which is Swartzia madagascarensis.
And Songololo means millipede.
Yeah. Yeah, and because the seeds look like millipedes hanging in the tree, so that's how the name came about. But that's an extremely precious timber used for making very, very expensive furniture.
And actually I have this one, which is a little dusty because I have some stuff in it, but this is the Dalbergia right here.
Yes, that's the Dalbergia,
and you can see how
and
dark it is.
Let me put my glasses on. It's a long time since we made this one. No, that one is Matassa. And Matassa in the center means the tree that calls the birds. So
does it have a lot of berries?
It's got a lot of berries, and the birds absolutely love it, yeah.
But you can see how dark this wood is, and obviously this is just like the natural wood.
And it's natural colors.
Yeah. And the reason why it's good for clarinets is because
it's tremendously stable.
And so it's also in the same family of rosewood, which if you're familiar with rosewood, that makes a lot of the guitars. But anyway, we will include the link to Mezimbite and also the Etsy page, because I put some items up of Allan's on the Etsy page, and all of that is going to go back to fund the Mezimbite Forest Centre, because unfortunately, just this past March, Hurricane Idai came through and actually ripped through
and decimated just about everything. Yeah.
It's about $500,000 worth of damage in about 25 years of Allan's work, and he has been through a lot, in that area, because it's a very challenging area to work in, to say the least, and that is euphemistic, terminology there, because it is an extremely challenging area, and I've written about it a little bit more, which I'll include links there. But we started a GoFundMe page, so if you feel compelled and you would like to help Allan, then and the rest of the people that he works with and the community in that area, then you go to the GoFundMe page. And then also, if you'd like to see some of Allan's work, I put that up on Etsy, and all of those funds will go directly to the cause. So thank you so much for helping me with the ZZ. I couldn't do it without you. Great.
Yeah.
Cut.
Done.
Yeah.
Cool episode. What's interesting is the Rosewood family and the Blackwood is used for woodwind instruments. The other wood, which is black, is ebony, and the ebony is not used for woodwind instruments. Rosewoods are very resilient to moisture, and they're tremendously stable. Ebony is incredibly resistant to abrasion. So for fingerboards of violins or guitars, the ebonies are very much better. Now, at this stage, this particular one is now a CITES Appendix 2, which allows you to trade it, but only under very special circumstances and with lots and lots of documentation.
And CITES basically means that it's for endangered species, the trade in endangered species. And so that is and sometimes the CITES in some cases doesn't go too far enough in case of the IUCN Red List, for instance.
I find that it's all very well having the regulation and saying, yes, this is regulated, but you've also got to have some teeth that you can actually catch guys who are trading it illegally and using it non-sustainably. And I think one of the issues with that is it takes a tremendously long time to grow. Our experience shows that a good quality instrument blank comes from a tree of between 200 and 300 years old. So if you're going to use it sustainably, you can only use 1/300th of your standing inventory each year. And you've got to make sure you plant them. And while they're a legume, and that allows you to quite easily propagate it, easy is a relative term. Yeah, there are very few people who actually have succeeded in propagating them and getting them to mature trees.
And Allan has always told me how challenging Dalbergia is. It's like a dense wood, but it's also kind of scraggly. So a lot of people don't, have the skill set or the ability to be able to work with it, just because it is a little bit of it's not like smooth timber.
No, not at all. And if you look at it, the yield for an instrument blank is about 8%. Now, if you're cutting mahogany, which is a very easy timber to to work with in terms of, and it's why it's so popular, it's so easy to do. You get yields of about 70%.
But your mahogany is different from our mahogany.
Yours is a Swetenia,
Yeah.
which are the American mahoganies, and ours is a Kaya, which are African mahoganies.
Right, and our mahogany I think is a more reddish timber, right?
No, yours is sort of pale, insipid color, and ours is the densest of the proper mahoganies.
Okay.
But what I always laugh about is that in world trade, the Swetenias are called true mahogany. But in fact, the name mahogany is an old name from Igbo, which is Nigeria, and it was used as a replacement by the slaves on Cuba, who were some of the first slaves there when they built houses. And they said, oh, this looks just like mahogany, which is the one which they had back in Nigeria, which were either Kayas or Entandrophragmas.
Yeah.
And so the name actually, mahogany even is a name which it's not English, it's not a European name, it's an African name.
That's so funny.
So it's really funny.
Yeah.
And then in trade it's called true mahogany, which is actually the newest one that was discovered, which is kind of wacky. The reason why the Swetenias are very popular is it's just so easy to work. It's very smooth, it's very easy, it's boring, it's like cheese. Ours is a dryland mahogany, so it's much more figured because it grows very much slower in poorer soils, and that makes it more decorative, more figured, stronger, and got a bit more color. What's interesting also is that mahogany as a color is actually not a color. Mahogany is not mahogany color. Mahogany color is derived from its first use industrially, which was a substitute for French walnut, because they ran out of French walnut, and mahogany takes a stain extremely easily. So you could actually imitate French walnut very well. So that's what has become called mahogany color, which is absolute BS. It's not that color.
Well, it kind of also makes me think about like when we went to Madagascar and they were like painting the wood.
Yeah.
Because they're all out, unfortunately, of like the wood that they've, so cut down and worked with, but they were painting it with shoe polish.
Yes.
To kind of like pass as like a different wood, a much more precious wood.